I knew the job was going to be hard on my marriage long before I said yes to it. I remember sitting at our kitchen table the night I got the acceptance letter, holding it in my hands like it was made of glass. Elena was across from me, stirring her tea, watching me with an expression I could not read. I said, "This is it. This is what I have been working toward for 6 years." She said, "I know." I said, "The hours are going to be brutal. I will miss dinners. I will miss weekends. I will miss holidays sometimes. But this is what I want. It is what I have always wanted." She said, "I know." She did not say congratulations. I should have paid more attention to that silence. But I was 26 years old, and I had just been accepted into one of the most competitive fire academies in the state. I was too busy feeling like I had won the lottery to notice that my wife was already grieving what she was going to lose. The academy was 6 months of hell. I woke up at 4 in the morning, drove 45 minutes to the training facility, and spent the next 12 hours learning how to force doors, search burning rooms, carry unconscious victims down ladders, and extinguish structure fires while blinded by smoke. I came home every night with bruised ribs and raw hands and a deep, animal exhaustion that I had never felt before. And I loved every second of it. Elena did not understand. She would ask me why I was smiling when I told her about the live burn exercises. She would shake her head when I described climbing a 70-foot ladder in full turnout gear. She did not see the purpose. She only saw the risk. I tried to explain it to her. I said, "This is the first time in my life I have felt like I am exactly where I am supposed to be." She said, "I am happy for you." But her voice did not match her words. The first year after the academy was hard. I was on a 24-hour shift rotation, which meant I worked one full day, followed by a day off, then another full day, then 2 days off. It sounded manageable on paper. In practice, it meant I was never fully present anywhere. On my days on, I was gone before sunrise and came home after midnight, exhausted, smelling like smoke and sweat and diesel fuel. On my days off, I was recovering, which meant I was home, but not really home. I slept. I ate. I stared at the ceiling and tried to reset my nervous system. Elena worked a regular 9 to 5 at a marketing firm. She left at 8 and came home at 6. She had weekends off. She had holidays off. She had a routine, and my schedule made a mess of it. She never said she resented me. Not at first. But I could feel it in the way she sighed when I told her I had to work another holiday. I could see it in the way she stopped asking me how my day was. I could hear it in the way she talked to her mother on the phone, lowering her voice when I walked into the room, whispering words I was not supposed to hear. When our son Leo was born, everything got louder. Leo was not an easy baby. He did not sleep through the night until he was 10 months old. He had colic for the first 3 months, which meant he screamed for hours every evening, no matter what we did. Elena was home on maternity leave for the first 6 months, and she carried most of that weight. I helped when I was home, but I was not home enough. I knew that. I felt guilty about it every single day. The fight started small. A sharp comment about a dirty dish. An eye roll when I asked what she wanted for dinner. A door closed a little too hard. But they escalated quickly, the way small fires do when you do not put them out fast enough. One night, about 4 months after Leo was born, I came home from a 24-hour shift. I had not slept in 30 hours. I had spent the night at a warehouse fire, hauling hose lines up 3 flights of stairs, breathing air that tasted like poison. My body ached. My lungs felt like they were lined with sandpaper. I walked through the door at 8 in the morning, and Elena was standing in the hallway with Leo on her hip, and she looked at me like I was a stranger. She said, "I cannot do this anymore." I said, "Do what?" She said, "This. Us. Me being alone all the time while you are out there playing hero." I said, "I am not playing hero. I am working." She said, "You are never here." I said, "I am here now." She said, "You are here now, but you are going to sleep all day, and then you are going to leave again, and I am going to be alone again. That is not a marriage. That is a roommate who stops by occasionally." I stood there in the hallway, still wearing my turnout pants, still smelling like the fire. I did not have the energy to argue. I did not have the energy to explain that I was doing this for us, for our son, for the future we were supposed to be building together. I said, "What do you want me to do?" She said, "I want you to quit." I said, "Quit my job?" She said, "Yes. Find something normal. Something that lets you be home. Something that lets me have a husband and lets Leo have a father." I said, "This is my dream. I have been working toward this my whole life." She said, "You have a son now. It is time to grow up." Those words stayed with me. They followed me into the shower, where I stood under hot water for 20 minutes and tried to wash the smoke off my skin. They followed me into bed, where I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, listening to Leo cry in the other room. They followed me for weeks, until I finally did what she asked. I quit. The day I handed in my resignation was the worst day of my professional life. My captain, a man named Roy who had been a firefighter for 32 years, looked at the letter, then looked at me, and said, "Are you sure about this?" I said, "My family needs me." He said, "I understand. But make sure you are doing this for the right reasons." A lot of marriages do not survive the fire service. But a lot of marriages do not survive quitting, either. I did not understand what he meant at the time. I thought he was being dramatic. My crew threw me a goodbye party at the station. They grilled burgers and drank soda and told stories about the crazy calls we had run together. Martinez came up to me and said, "You are making a mistake, brother." I said, "I do not have a choice." He said, "You always have a choice. You are just choosing her." I drove home that night with a lump in my throat that would not go away. I told myself I had made the right decision. I told myself that family came first. I told myself that I could always go back to firefighting later, when Leo was older, when things were more stable. I did not know then that you cannot go back. The door closes. The spot on the truck gets filled. The bonds you built with your crew fade as they move on without you. I was not just quitting a job. I was leaving a family. The insurance company job came through 3 months later. It was at a regional claims processing center, a squat beige building on the outskirts of town with a parking lot full of sensible sedans. The office was a sea of cubicles, each one identical to the last. Gray walls, gray carpets, gray computers. The only color came from the motivational posters on the walls, which showed pictures of sailboats and eagles and said things like teamwork and excellence. My job was to process claims. People would file claims for car accidents and house fires and medical procedures, and I would sit at my computer and review them and approve them or deny them based on the policy language. The work was monotonous. There was no urgency, no danger, no reason to be alert or focused or brave. I just sat there and clicked buttons and moved papers from one digital pile to another. The first week, I came home every day with a headache from the fluorescent lights. The second week, I came home with a different kind of headache, one that came from deep inside my skull and did not go away no matter how much ibuprofen I took. By the third week, I had stopped noticing the headaches. I had stopped noticing a lot of things. I went home at 5 o'clock every day. I never worked weekends. I never got called in the middle of the night. I was home for dinner every single night. I was the husband Elena said she wanted. And I was miserable. I did not tell her that. I could not. Because how do you tell your wife that the thing she asked you to do, the sacrifice she demanded, is slowly killing you inside? How do you explain that leaving your dream feels like leaving a part of yourself behind? How do you say, "I used to save lives and now I argue with people about deductible limits," without sounding like you were blaming her? I kept my mouth shut and I went to work and I came home and I took care of Leo and I did the dishes and I folded the laundry and I was the perfect husband on paper. And Elena was still unhappy. She had gone back to work after her maternity leave ended. Her company had promoted her to account director, which meant she was working longer hours now. She was coming home at 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, stressed and exhausted and short-tempered. I would have dinner ready. I would have Leo bathed and fed and ready for bed. I would have the house clean and the laundry folded. And she would walk in, drop her bag by the door, and find something to criticize. The pizza was too greasy. The baby's onesie did not match. I had not vacuumed under the couch. I had used the wrong detergent. I had let Leo watch too much television. I had not let Leo watch enough television. The house was too quiet. The house was too loud. I started to feel like I was living in a maze with no exit. When I was a firefighter, I was wrong for not being home enough. Now that I was home, I was wrong for not understanding how hard it was to work long hours. When I had a demanding job, I was selfish. Now that I had an easy job, I was lazy. There was no version of me that was good enough. One night, about 6 months into my new job, I tried to talk to her about it. I said, "I feel like I cannot win." She said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I quit my dream job because you asked me to. I work a job I hate so I can be here for you and Leo. And you are still angry at me." She said, "I am not angry at you." I said, "You criticize everything I do." She said, "I am just tired. I work long hours." I come home, and you have been here all day, and I feel like you do not understand what it is like to be out there, grinding, dealing with the pressure. I said, I used to run into burning buildings. Do not tell me I do not understand pressure. She got quiet. She looked at me, and for a second I thought she was going to apologize. But then she said, that was different. That was your choice. This is different. I said, what is the difference? She said, you chose to be a firefighter. You knew what you were signing up for. I did not choose to work these hours. It just happened. I said, you got promoted. You said yes. She said, I did not have a choice. If I said no, they would have given the job to someone else. I said, that is not the same as having no choice. She said, it feels the same. I did not know what to say to that. I still do not. The weeks turned into months. I kept going to the job I hated. I kept coming home and taking care of Leo and cleaning the house and cooking dinner. I kept trying to be the husband Elena said she wanted. And I kept failing because the goalposts kept moving. I started calling my old captain, Roy, just to talk. He would listen while I vented, and then he would say something like, you cannot pour from an empty cup, kid. Or, sometimes doing the right thing feels wrong because the right thing is hard. He never gave me direct advice. He just let me talk. One night, I told him about a specific argument Elena and I had. She had come home at 9, exhausted from a client presentation, and I had made the mistake of saying, you look tired. She snapped at me. She said, of course I look tired. I have been working all day while you sat here doing nothing. I said, I did not sit here doing nothing. I took care of our son. I cleaned the house. I made dinner. She said, that is not a real job. I hung up with Roy that night and sat in the dark living room for a long time, staring at the wall, thinking about the fires I had fought and the people I had saved and the captain who told me I was making a mistake. Roy had been right. I started going to the gym again because it was the only place where I felt like myself. I would put on headphones and lift weights until my arms shook, and for that hour, I was not a husband or a father or an insurance claims processor. I was just a body moving through space. It was the closest thing to peace I had felt since I quit the department. Elena noticed. She said, you are going to the gym a lot. I said, I need to do something for myself. She said, you are never home when I get back. I said, I am home every night. I make dinner. I take care of Leo. I go to the gym for 1 hour. Do not act like I am abandoning you. She said, I am not acting. I am telling you how I feel. I said, and what about how I feel? She did not answer. I think that was the moment I realized our marriage was not going to survive this. Not because we did not love each other, but because she had spent so long seeing me as the problem that she could not see me as anything else. I was the obstacle. I was the thing in her way. Even when I gave her exactly what she asked for, I was still wrong. The breaking point came on a Thursday night in November. I had picked Leo up from daycare at 3. I had fed him, bathed him, put him to bed. I had cleaned the kitchen, started a load of laundry, and prepped vegetables for the next day's dinner. Elena came home at 8 o'clock, looked around the house, and said, you did not take out the trash. I said, I will do it in the morning. She said, the trash is full. It smells. I said, it is 1 bag. I will take it out in the morning. She said, you always say that. You always put things off. You do the bare minimum and expect me to be grateful. I lost it. I said, I quit my job for you. I gave up everything I worked for because you told me I had to. I sit in a cubicle 8 hours a day processing claims for people who do not care, and I come home, and I take care of our son, and I clean our house, and I cook our meals. And you walk in at 8 o'clock at night, after I have been doing this all day, and complain about the trash. She said, I did not ask you to quit. I stared at her. I said, yes, you did. You stood in the hallway and told me you could not do this anymore. You told me to grow up. You told me to find something normal. And I did. And now you are telling me it is not enough. She said, I did not mean for you to quit completely. I meant for you to find something with better hours. I said, that is exactly what I did. She said, I did not know it would make you this unhappy. I said, you did not ask. The silence after that was the loudest thing I had ever heard. Leo started crying in the other room. I walked away to get him, and when I came back, Elena was sitting on the couch with her face in her hands. I sat down next to her. Leo was fussing in my arms. I rocked him gently and waited for her to speak. She said, I do not know how to fix this. I said, neither do I. She said, I miss who you used to be. I said, so do I. We sat there for a long time, not talking, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car passing by outside. Leo fell asleep against my chest. I looked at his small face, his tiny fingers curled around my thumb, and I thought about all the choices I had made to get here. Every single one of them had been for him, and I still did not know if I had done the right thing. I still do not know. But I know this. I am not going back to the insurance company. I am going to find a way back to what I love, even if it means starting over. I am going to call Roy tomorrow and ask if the department is hiring. I am going to tell Elena that I love her, but I cannot keep living a life that makes me feel dead inside. And if she cannot accept that, if she cannot accept me, then there is no version of this story where we both get what we want. I hope she chooses us. But I am done being the only one sacrificing.